If you were going to go from point A to point B in 4 frames, how would you do it? Seems almost like a trick question. Point A is there, point B is there. You said 4 frames, so there must be a frame here, and there must be a frame here. The only thing is that frames are not points in time. Frames are periods of time. So it's the same question as saying, how would you go from New York to LA in a year on foot? Winter, spring, summer, fall. Frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4. So those are the actual frames, and that's how motion blur would actually work. You shutter open here, stays open, shutter closes at the end of the frame. But that's why whenever you render CG with motion blur, it always does something funky with the motion blur because it looks ahead to or behind from, or it centers on what it thinks of as a frame. But again, frames are not points in time. They're periods of time. If you take a picture with a DSLR and you have a slow shutter speed, it doesn't look ahead to another picture or behind to a previous picture. It captures the motion blur from when the shutter opens to when the shutter closes in that one single frame. What can you do with this information? Not much. It's too late. And it's too confusing to animate any other way if you're doing cell animation, because other than the fact that sometimes they make extra blurry smeared frames to kind of simulate motion blur, they don't really handle time and motion blur consistently when they're doing cell animation. So they get the key poses at the beginning, the end, and throughout the middle, and they call them key frames, but they really should be key poses, and each frame should be really a pair of key poses and what happens to get from one pose to the other. But again, because they don't have computers, that's an entirely too difficult thing to ask for from a cell animator for the most part. So they don't do it. So there's a fence post error or an off by 1 error in the handling of time in all of our computer programs.